H3 Music.
You gotta be kidding me! Sports. Yay.
It's insanity. Welcome into Cole's Corner. We're here on a Tuesday afternoon from the basement of Medaille College. You are listening live from WMCB The Fuse, home of the Mavericks. Good afternoon. However you may be listening, wherever you may be listening. This show is brought to you by Beyond the Box Score. Once again, thank you for joining. A lot on the plate today. We got Andrew Parks, our college football man, coming in soon around the corner. We got Dumpster Fire. We got the higher fires of the NFL. A lot on the plate. So we're going to start off the show. Has anyone been discouraged by their writing before? Like, you feel self-conscious about it. You never do well on papers. You feel stupid when you're writing and you don't think it sounds good. I know a lot of people like that. They don't want to read out their writing aloud in front of the class. See, I'm one of the few who has never really had issues writing. I felt like that was a subject I excelled in, English. Ask me a math or science question and my head's going in a million different directions. It'll take me a tutor and a couple hours to answer the one question. For me, writing has came easy. I've always been told I'm a good writer. My mother always shares my writing pieces on Facebook. People come up to me and compliment me for something I wrote a couple months ago. It's crazy. Well, this past week, I was told in my media seminar class that my writing has way too much clutter. It's too wordy, a lot of run-on sentences. I just go on and on, don't get to the point. Not gonna lie, I was a little discouraged. Of course, it happens. It's made me more aware of it, though, and I'm glad someone said something, or I would have gone the rest of my career, which is sports communications. I need to be able to write. I would have been writing clutter if this didn't come to my attention. But now I'm worried that it's going to set me back a little bit. It's going to be in the back of my head. I'm going to focus more on that than writing in the style I've always embraced. So, you see, in sports, we see the same thing. And it's not writing, no. It's we hype up guys so much. We hype up these players. We put them on this pedestal, compare them to past greats. And we expect excellence right away, and we watch their every move. We watch how they play. We watch the things they do, the things they say. And it becomes quite a burden for those players. It really does, even if they do start excelling. See, we tell them they're going to be a star. If you tell someone they're going to be a star, it goes to their head. That's the world we live in. It's the psyche of it. We've already seen it in this past year's draft. Baker Mayfield, Saquon Barkley, Sam Darnold, those are the top 3 draft picks. They're told they're going to be stars. We've seen it in the past with some of the biggest busts in NFL history. Jamarcus Russell, Vince Young, Matt Leinart. These guys are told they're stars. It gets to their head. They don't work as hard. They stop putting work into their game. They don't evolve. They don't adapt to the game around them. It takes constant bad performances before they realize it and try to fix it. And before you know it, they are set back. They're behind the 8 ball. It's a whole mess. We've seen it happen every year, and it will continue to happen as long as sports exists. We put this narrative in their head that they're the greatest. They're going to be a star. We need to not treat these guys like royalty until they prove their loyalty. Baker Mayfield came on and got Cleveland their first win since 2016, last week against New York. Well, he became the full-time starter. Named the starter in Oakland. They lost to Oakland in a thriller. Overtime thriller, 45-42. It was a shootout. Did he play decent and give his team a chance to win? Yes. But he also turned the ball over 4 times, one of them being a fumbled snap. Mishandled the snap, lost the ball, Raiders ball. It's just not good enough. Sam Darnold hasn't won a game since week 1, and he's looked subpar. A lot of mistakes, quite a few picks. Jets, he doesn't have a lot of pieces. That's just a team that is just slowly getting worse after the performance we saw him put together in week 1 in Detroit. Do I think they'll be good QBs in this league? Yes. But we make them feel like superstars, and they haven't even finished a quarter of their first NFL season. See, we saw Patrick Mahomes put up the most touchdowns in the NFL through 3 weeks, and everyone thinks he's the next Aaron Rodgers, the next Brett Favre. Well, did you see last night, Monday Night Football? He led a 2-score deficit to a win for Kansas City in the final minutes, including a ridiculous play, getting chased down by the best pass rusher in the league, Von Miller. Shot puts the ball forward with his left hand for the first down. Unbelievable. And he's good. He's really good. I will say that. He came back down to reality a little bit for a part of the game yesterday, but what he showed in a tough environment in Denver in his first Monday night game, first primetime game, he showed up. And now the problem is he's going to be put up on this pedestal, and he is going to be looked at as a star. It's good he's in Kansas City, a small market. If he were somewhere else, it would be even worse. But there's a burden when we put these guys on these ranks, put them up above everyone, put them on this tier of superstardom possible. We can't have this. It's going to cause issues down the road. Yes, he's in a good system with Andy Reid, and he's got a lot of pieces on that offense. Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt, Sammy Watkins. He has pieces. He's in a good system. He's got a good head around his shoulders. But the things that stardom does to people and the pressure that is going to mount for this kid if he keeps winning, it's going to be unreal. He hasn't had a bad performance yet. He's 4-0. Look at Baker Mayfield. Had his first poor performances this week with 3 picks and another turnover. Josh Allen got shut out against Green Bay. Looked not good. Not anywhere like he did against Minnesota 2 weeks ago. Sam Darnold has not impressed me. Looked good week 1. Since then, subpar. Jets haven't won a game since then. These guys have clutter in their game. They make mistakes. It's going to happen. Let them find their mistakes. Let them grow. Don't let it get to their heads, or they will find out in years that they aren't anywhere near where we wanted to be, where we expected them to be. They're going to have bumps and bruises. It's going to happen. We can't fully expect Patrick Mahomes to keep up what he's done through 4 weeks, his entire career. And it's just going to be interesting to see when that sometime maybe unravels. We've already seen the growth pains in the other guys. Patrick Mahomes is the exception right now. But we can't let it get to his head too quick, because we don't want these. We want to see these guys succeed. I want each and every one of these quarterbacks to do well in the NFL. It makes for good football, great offense, a lot of scoring, a lot of just great potential for the league in general. But we can't hype them up too much. We can't put it in their heads that they're the greatest, because eventually they won't be the greatest. That's it. I mean, all right, hot take headlines from the week. We had 2 tiebreakers in the MLB yesterday. Day 163. Game 163. Milwaukee and Chicago for the NL Central. LA, Colorado for the West. So Milwaukee went into Chicago and got the win. 3-1 in Chicago. And the Dodgers secured the NL West with a win at home against the Rockies. Now the Rockies have to fly all the way to Chicago and play tonight in the NL wildcard game. Should be a good one. Tomorrow night we have the AL wildcard game in the Oakland A's and the New York Yankees in Yankee Stadium. So last night, Monday Night Football, Denver has a lead at home, 10-point lead late. And Kansas City comes back, wins the game. As I mentioned, Patrick Mahomes. On Sunday night, Pittsburgh loses their 10-game win streak on prime time with a loss to their rival, the Baltimore Ravens, on Sunday night. Slow start, down 14-3, come back to tie the game at halftime. And all of a sudden, the entire second half was purely dominated by the Baltimore Ravens. Steelers don't score another point. Joe Flacco and that Ravens team looks good. We'll get to them later. The Steelers need to figure something out on offense. We thought that wasn't going to be their issue. Well, that offense stalled on Sunday night in the second half. So, once again, Andrew Parks around the corner coming in, talking some college football. He's our expert. We will have him soon. And since we are talking about the NFL, get into our dumpster fire talks and our higher fires. Dumpster fire, 5 through 1. Roll it. Number 5, a new team put into the dumpster fire. It's tough to say, but the Philadelphia Eagles have reached the dumpster fire. They lose in overtime to Tennessee, nowhere near where they were last year. Bring in Carson Wentz off of his injury. They barely sneak out a win at home against Indianapolis, coming off a loss to Tampa Bay the week prior. After the week prior to that, sneaking out a win on the final play against Atlanta. Back to week 4, offense is not coming together. They're not creating production. Their defense is still there. They have a very aggressive defense, but their offense is not producing. Keeping teams in games. They kept Tennessee in it way too long. We go to overtime, and they have a field goal lead. Had 2 chances to shut down Marcus Mariota on 4th down. They converted, and Mike Vrabel wasn't playing for the tie. He went for it on 4th down. They converted. They score a touchdown and walk off with a win. Tennessee's 3-1. Well, look at this. The Philadelphia Eagles are 2-2, and they can very well be 0-4 right now. They are that close to being 0-4. They need to figure something out. I think they will, but for now, this team has not impressed me or anyone else. They're in our dumpster fire. Number 4. This is a weird one because this team crept up and up each week. They're 3-0 coming in this week, and they're headed into a good position. The Miami Dolphins started 3-0. We're starting to turn heads. I don't know if everyone believes in them yet. I still don't. And you see this, they're in the dumpster fire. They went into New England with a much healthier team, a much more capable team. Tom Brady's still without Julian Edelman. Gronk's getting double-teamed. They have a rookie running back in Sonny Michel who was still trying to get used to this NFL play. Looked good on Sunday. But Miami was this close. They had the upper hand. Whether or not it was in New England, they had the upper hand, and they laid a complete egg. I picked them to upset the Patriots, go 4-0, turn some heads. There'd be craziness going on in New England. But no, they lay an egg, 38-7. New England wins. Miami travels now to a good Cincinnati team and then to another good Chicago team who just destroyed Tampa Bay this week. They have a tough schedule coming. They're about to go from 3-0 to 3-3. And it's going to be the same old Miami Dolphins that we've seen in the past. Number 3, the Indianapolis Colts. They lose in overtime to Houston. They're now 1-3. They had that questionable call on 4th down in overtime. Frank Reich, we'll get to that in a second. They have no pieces surrounding Andrew Luck in that offense. Their defense is getting there, but they're not creating points. Andrew Luck has not a lot to throw to. He's got T.Y. Hilton, and that's about it. Don't have a run game whatsoever. They need a win, and they're traveling to New England next week. Who just may have jumped back on the wagon with their blowout win against the 3-0 Miami team. So New England's home. That's this Thursday night. That'll be interesting to see if somehow Andrew Luck can lead his troops back and win a game in New England. So, in that questionable 4th down call in overtime, it's tough to judge. Frank Reich came out and said it after the game. No shame, he went for it. It's a risk. They know it. High risk, high reward play. They're not playing for a tie. They're playing to win the game. If they punt there, that game ends in a tie because Deshaun Watson's going to be backed up inside his own 20 with 30 seconds left. That game ends in a tie if they punt that ball. Instead, drop it, 4th down, give Houston the ball. It takes one play to get in field goal range. Game over. He's probably still going to have to answer questions about that, which just adds to the dumpster fire. Number 2, the Atlanta Falcons have made their way in. They lose on the final play against Cincinnati. Game-winning drive by Andy Dalton. Touchdown. A.J. Green in the end zone. They win by 1. Atlanta, absolutely no defense, and we've seen it. 3 shootouts the last 3 weeks. 3 absolute shootouts. And they are coming on the wrong end of it almost every time. Last week, shootout. Had the lead late, gave up a touchdown to Drew Brees and the Saints. They go to overtime. They drive right down the field and score. Alvin Kamara, game over. This week, more shootout. Each team's in the 20s at halftime. They come back, they take the lead late, and let Andy Dalton, Cincinnati offense, drive down the field, score to lose the game. They'll be playing in constant shootouts, and we've seen that. But their lack of defensive playmakers will be their kryptonite. We've already seen they hitting the injury bug. They have 4 starters injured on that defensive side of the ball. When you hear next man up, when you lose 4 starters, it's tough. Next man up becomes plural. It's next men up. And that's tough to fix. And if they don't somehow fix it, this team is in for a rude awakening, especially in the South, where they got a high-powered Saints offense. The Carolina offense could go off at any time, and we saw what the Bucs did in 2 weeks. We'll see what Jameis Winston can bring. Speaking of Tampa Bay, they are number 1 on my dumpster fire. They get blown out, absolutely blown out by Chicago. Give up 6 touchdown passes to Mitch Trubisky. They lose their 2nd straight after their loss to Pittsburgh last week on Monday night. Now Jameis Winston is back. This just adds to the fire. Ryan Fitzpatrick had 2 magical weeks. They go 2-0, beating the Saints and the Eagles. Almost completed a comeback against Pittsburgh last week. Now Jameis Winston's coming back after their bye week. He's coming back. That might stir up a controversy. We're not knowing which Jameis we're going to see. We've seen a lot of shades of him. We don't know who we're going to see, especially after what we saw from Fitzpatrick the first 2 weeks. He's going to have to step up. He's going to have to make plays for this offense, for an offense we've seen can do stuff. Between Deshaun Jackson, Mike Evans, and O.J. Howard, they have pieces. It'll be interesting to see it, but right now, they're in a dumpster fire after that complete blowout loss to Mitch Trubisky and the Bears, and now they have a quarterback change. Very intriguing to see what Tampa Bay does moving forward because they're in that division right now. They're right there in the mix of it. They're a game ahead of Atlanta. They're not in last place. We'll see how that goes. That's the dumpster fire. There's some teams that could be on there. There's definitely teams that could be on there, but, you know, there's only 5 for a reason. We might have to step up, make it 10. That'll be tough. Put 10 teams in the dumpster fire. It's very difficult to do that, but let's head into our higher fire. These are now the top 5 of my teams heading into week 5. And a bit of an interesting thing here because beginning of the year, I think we all think the NFC's loaded. They're loaded. A lot of great teams. Teams picked to win the Super Bowl. Well, we look into our higher fire this week. A little spoiler alert. We got 4 teams in the AFC here in the top 5. And here we go. Run it. Number 5, Baltimore. They come in at 3-1. They won in Pittsburgh on Sunday night. Pittsburgh hasn't lost a primetime game in 10 games. They lose. Joe Flacco's playing great football with Lamar Jackson on his back for the starting job, just like I said he would be a few weeks ago. Number 4, Jacksonville. They are still, right now, an elite team, even though after the egg that they laid last week against Tennessee, complete disastrous, but we see Blake Bortles. He's playing his best football of his career right now. He threw for over 300 yards again. He's got a lot of pieces. And that Jacksonville defense still might be the best defense in the league. A lot of playmakers. Jacksonville moving forward. They got a big game this week against Kansas City. That one will be huge. Number 3, this is a stretch. I'm throwing them out there because I like the way they've been playing. Cincinnati. Number 3, final seconds to win score in Atlanta. Andy Dalton driving the team down, scoring in the final seconds. They've looked good on both sides of the ball. I'm not sure how long it's going to last. That's going to be a very intriguing division going on to the latter parts of the season. You got Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati, and then the Cleveland Browns are a wild card. We're not going to sure what we're going to see out of them. And Cincinnati has a chance to win this division. They have a chance to finally get there, win a playoff game for Marvin Lewis. This may be his last shot. Number 2, you can't count out the Kansas City Chiefs. They look unbelievable. They come back from a 10-point deficit late last night on Monday Night Football. Patrick Mahomes has been the best quarterback in the league so far. I talked about him earlier. You can't let it get to his head. Puts a lot of burden on him. He's going to find a lot of pressure, which might come down to haunt him later on. But that comeback win in Denver last night, very impressive. Denver's not an easy place to play. It's on prime time. This team is full of weapons. They're lethal. And you got a good offensive coach in Andy Reid, and Patrick Mahomes is playing out of his mind with Kareem Hunt beside him. You got Tyreek Hill, probably the fastest man in football. Travis Kelce, right there with Gronk, is the best tight end in the league. And then you got yourself Sammy Watkins, who's played a part so far. And then number 1, if it's not anyone but the LA Rams, I don't know what you're talking about. No one can stop this team. They can't stop their offense. They had a shootout on Thursday night with Vikings like we all thought it would be. They had the upper hand. There's a very high possibility this team goes 15-1. Very high. And they have a couple tough games down the stretch, but I just don't see a team who can stop them. And I'm circling the calendar for Week 11 when this team and the Kansas City Chiefs meet up. That is going to be an absolute barn burner. Can't wait to see it. But there's your higher fires for the week. We did our dumpster fires. Now, on to the next part. Andrew Parks in studio. I'm going to bring the mic over here for the camera. Hey, Dom Fuller making a appearance here. How are you doing, Dom?
Great, how are you?
Beautiful. So, Andrew Parks, how are you doing, man?
No, couldn't be better.
So, I wanted to bring you in here, talk some college football. Something that came to my attention, just look, first few weeks. First of all, just what do you think of college football so far the first few weeks of the season?
Well, it's a lot of SEC West right now. 1, 2, and 5 between Alabama, Georgia, and LSU. And a little bit of shakeup. Ohio State taking down Penn State in Happy Valley. That was a big win for Ohio State. Controversial call at the end. Notre Dame with another big win. Looks like they're going to be a contender going forward. Oklahoma, Kyle Murray's been playing out of his mind. He's been excellent. I'm very interested to see what happens with Clemson going forward with their quarterback situation. I think Lawrence is going to practice this week, but I'm very interested to see if Kelly Bryant hangs around, what he decides to do. But right now, I think it's the SEC West, and whoever can knock them off. We got some big games coming up, though.
Very glad you said that, because that's what I wanted to get to. The South has been college football has become very regional now. The South has dominated for years. SEC, the best conference. So, what effect do you think this has on college football? We've seen it, and if you look, I pulled it up. Since 2006, college football playoff national champion. It's been Florida, LSU, Florida, Alabama, Auburn, Alabama, Florida State, Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, Alabama. The only team in there that's not in the South is Ohio State over the last 13 years. What can you say about that and why it's very important, especially this past week, to see the Ohio States win, the Notre Dame's win? How important is that? I know you. It's because you're a South fan, you're an LSU fan, but how important is it for these other teams, these past powerhouses that we've seen in the past, to win and try to shake it up a little bit?
I think it's great for football. You have a lot of really good programs between the Penn States, Ohio States, Michigan's, Notre Dame's. I think all those guys are great for football. Obviously, the best football right now seems to be in the South. I mean, Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, Kirby Smart, they're all doing outstanding jobs. So it's going to be hard to knock those guys off. But obviously, if you have those storied programs in there from the North, I think they're all very good football teams. And, it'll be interesting to see kind of how some of these SEC games go and how those teams can shake things up. But I think it's great for football. You've got a lot of storied programs, and it's good to see them making some noise in the top 10.
What do you see for the future of college football if it doesn't leave that regional effect? If it stays in the South and only the South, do you feel like there's going to be effect moving forward in any way?
Possibly, but I mean, there's still a lot of really good football players up north. I think schools like Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, you can throw out like Washington with Chris Peterson. I think you're always going to have good football teams in the north, but obviously what the SEC is doing, the ACC, it's going to be very tough to compete with them. So going forward, I'm not sure maybe how that's going to flip or how long Alabama can keep this up for. So, but in the immediate future, just seeing the coaching that they have down there and the athletes, it's it's going to be very tough to knock those schools off. But if it's going to be really dependent on some of those good Big Ten teams, maybe Pac-12 teams. There's a lot open, but right now it's very tough.
Yeah, because you see, and when I pulled up those national champions the last 12, 13 years, the ratings have gone down the last few years. But the one year where the ratings were the highest was in 2014. Ohio State won it all when they played. Who'd they play? I think it was Oregon.
Oregon,
right,
yeah.
I believe.
So.
That was the highest rates we've had in the last 10 years in national championships. So as a rating perspective, and just not just you as a college football fan, as an SEC fan, outside of that, what does college football have to do to get those ratings back up, really, especially if you're not going to have an Ohio State or a Michigan in the national championship?
It's tough. That's interesting that you brought that up, how the ratings were highest for the Ohio State game. I think it's pretty clear in all sports. People get sick of watching the same teams over and over again. It's just so much harder in college sports to change that. You don't have a draft. The best teams get to choose the cream of the crop. I think it starts up top with the coaching staff. You can see with like Chris Peterson at Washington. Ever since he's gotten there, they've done a phenomenal job. So I think it really starts with getting the right coaches in. And, obviously, as you can see, when those programs start to do well, people love it. They want to be a part of it. And, I think it starts there. But obviously, it's just a little bit tougher in the college atmosphere because of the recruiting process. And, especially with the money involved in football today. It seems that those teams in the Power 5 conferences, the teams that make the playoff, they're getting a larger chunk of change, and it's getting harder and harder for other schools to try to, really make a bang at the top of the nation.
Yeah. So to build off that, how important has the college football playoff been, do you think, and how they changed it from just the BCS, AP, the top-ranked 2 teams get in? How important for college football do you think has been the college football playoff in the 4 teams?
I think it's a good start. I do like what they did. I think it's inevitable that's going to expand. There's so much money in it. There's been controversy, like Penn State not getting in 2016. But I think it's good. It's having those games on New Year's. I think those are big games. A lot of people watch them. So I think it's been positive. But I do think it's going to change slightly in the future. More teams are going to get included.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, if you thought they're going to expand it. I think we all know it's going to expand eventually. How many teams do you think would be the right amount? With not having too many teams, too few teams, what do you think would be the right amount, and how that would make it better for everyone?
I think anywhere from 6 to 8. I think 8 if you would have, just tournament style, 1 play 8, and maybe you could start those games on New Year's, or maybe you could start them even earlier and play a couple games. To me, I think that would get rid of the controversy. You really wouldn't have any teams in that 4, 5, 6 area that would get left out, and I mean, at that point, just the best team prevails.
When you say teams won't be left out, though, when you expand it, though, then there are going to be those teams that are going to feel left out. The teams that maybe lose 2 games, one of them being a top-ranked team. Do you think there still won't be controversy? Have you ever thought about that more? Like, because if you add, what do you think about it? You think teams get left out of a 14 playoff? How many more teams do you think will feel left out if you have 8? How about those teams that are right there on the edge, 9 to the 12th ranked teams in the country that feel left out?
Sure, you might have some, but I think there's a big difference between like a 4 or 5 seed and like an 8-9 seed.
Yeah,
so I think you'll get a more competitive playoff. I think the best teams will play, and obviously that's what they wanted at the beginning when they tried to create this.
Perfect. So before I'm asking another question relating to the NFL, but first, LSU Tigers, where do you think you're headed? You got a good start, that game winner in Auburn.
Yep.
What's it looking like the rest of the year?
Very excited, very tough. They've got Florida coming up this week. After that, they've got Georgia, and they've got obviously they have that big game against Alabama. They finish out the season with Texas A&M, and I think they've got one more I can't remember. Well, they've also got Mississippi State. So they've got a lot of tough games coming up, but offensively they've been playing very well, hung up 45 on Ole Miss. So, if they can score points, they'll give themselves a chance. But those Georgia-Alabama games, those are going to define their season.
Mm-hmm. Coach O.
Love it, man.
So just relating to the NFL real quick, we've been seeing it, we've been talking about it, how the NFL more and more is kind of looking like college football when it comes to offense and total offense, and how really the offense has been shaping these games, especially the first few weeks of this season, due to all the penalties that are overly favoring the offense with the roughing the passer, the helmet-to-helmet contact. How much do you think of effect that's going to have on the NFL?
I mean, it's clearly evolving into an offensive game. I think we've been able to see it over the last 8-10 years. Fans like points. They love teams scoring. They love these big numbers. As to how far it goes or to that push-pull, I'm not sure. Obviously, they're concerned with player safety, keeping players safe on the field, playing into a role of the penalties. But I think you will see more multi-dimensional quarterbacks, guys that can throw and run. It just makes so much more sense. So I think that's the biggest thing I've seen from the college game, RPOs, just having more options. Just simply it's harder to defend. Mm-hmm. And, obviously defense still wins championships, but I think the ways that teams have been evolving offensively, you're definitely seeing more offense in the game, and I think that's something the league wants.
Yeah, I feel like we've seen that with what they want, because they're trying to protect these quarterbacks. Because we saw last year the ratings went down when we had Aaron Rodgers on the bench. You had Carson Wentz on the bench, Deshaun Watson out. And the ratings went down when you saw that. So I definitely think that they're doing a good job in trying to protect these guys, because it makes the league more fun, more points, like you said. But there is a line, though. We've seen that. It's tough. And I think the first few weeks might have just been a kind of a statement to the league, like, we're not going to be doing this. So hopefully that changes. So how do you feel about some of the hits that we've seen that have been called roughing the passer? Like the one, for example, Clay Matthews on Alex Smith last week. How do you feel about that being flagged?
Those are tough calls to make, and you hate seeing those calls, especially since those can be big points in the game, like Matthews hit on Cousins back when they played Minnesota, and Minnesota ended up going down and tying the game. I think they're trying to make it safer. I mean, obviously it's been tough. Refs are learning. But I think we'll start to see better calls. The referee's going to learn. But, it's just a little frustrating to watch sometimes, especially from the defensive side. Hits that might have looked harmless in the past now are being flagged. So, it takes maybe a little excitement out of the game. It's a little more frustrating, but they'll figure something out going forward. It's just obviously they're really concerned with, keeping guys on the field. Because like you said, when the best players are on the bench, people don't like watching.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you, Andrew Parks, for coming in studio. We're going to take a break real quick. We got David right around the corner, Earl Thomas, Cool or Fool. We will be right back here from Cole's Corner. All right, welcome back into the herd. Thank you for joining us. That was Andrew Parks there talking some college football, the NFL. So we had that around the corner. We did our dumpster fire, our higher fires. We got just a couple more things. Cooler Fool's really cool for today. Funny there, Cooler Fool. But today, finishing some things up. To the people who don't respect sports, the people who constantly tear on sports, say they don't mean anything, to the people that say sports are terribly boring, don't contribute anything to society. See, something happened on Saturday, and that was David Wright playing in his final game in his career here in Major League Baseball for the New York Mets. Was there his entire career. And let me just ask one question. What does this show you? So that was just David Wright there. Just so much emotion there from the New York fan base. A lot of love there, a lot of passion between the two, between David Wright and the New York fans. You see, he mentioned how they embraced him since he was a 21-year-old kid. Stayed there his entire career. Just a lot to love there. You see the passion in sports and the relationships that have been built because of it. We see year in and out athletes that have made a difference to our cities and an impact for the sports world. Guys who put their all into bringing joy and love for sports to light for an entire career. What other careers do you see guys getting a standing ovation and a day dedicated to them by thousands of people? I'll wait. He came to the stadium and was greeted by hundreds, thousands of Mets fans on his walk into the stadium, which is a good 5-6 hours before the game starts, probably 4. He gets his own day, David Wright Day. His daughter throws the first pitch out to him. Enters the field, gets on third base, standing ovation for minutes before the game starts. Final at bat, gets an ovation, and he comes out and gives a speech at the end. See, we've seen these things. David Wright, we saw with Derek Jeter over across the city in the Bronx. Even Bryce Harper was taking a bow for the Nationals fans the other day, just in case it was his last game as a National at home. These fans take this stuff seriously. They love these guys. We saw the Staples Center sell out for the Lakers each and every game in Kobe Bryant's final season. Even though the team was terrible, that team was bad. It was really bad. Yet they sold out every game because everyone wanted to see Kobe Bryant play one more time. Everyone wanted to come see his last game, in which he went out in a bang and scored 60 points and won the game. We've seen several NFL players win a Super Bowl in their final game. It was a ride off into the sunset where the city's partied for days. Most recently, Ray Lewis, Peyton Manning. We saw Alex Ovechkin do keg stands for weeks after finally bringing a title to the Washington Capitals, the Stanley Cup. Even for David Wright, it wasn't the smoothest career. He had a lot of injuries, a lot of losing within that organization outside of the 2015 season and run of the World Series. And early on in his career, they fought for the division every year. Yet New York embraced him as one of their own and a legend in the making. Moments like these go beyond sports and beyond the mantra of winning a title to end a season. The Mets had a horrible year. They did not live up to expectations. I talked about it the other day and how Jacob deGrom could have been 30-0, 25-5. He's going to be a Cy Young winner with a 10-9 record next to his name because the team can't score runs. That was the Mets in a nutshell, and it has been the last few years. But this was more than that. It's more than sports. It's a message to the fans, all of sports world, and what these players mean and what sports means to cities. Brings people together. Sports, they matter. They matter, people. Just listen and watch. So there's another cool, fun thing. I said it again, but here's our cool or fool for the day. See, we had a big game Saturday. Ohio State, Penn State. Penn State with a 12-point lead late in the game. Ohio State cuts it close. They take the lead eventually. Penn State has a final chance in the waning seconds. They have a 4th down. They run the ball, get stuffed, game over. James Franklin, their head coach, in his post-game presser, kind of went on in a rant. It was a really good one, though. Very message high. It was very relatable to the people. It was just very inspirational, really, and how just not being comfortable with a great program. They're not elite yet. They lost to Ohio State once again. They can't get over that hump. And here's what James Franklin had to say.
We've gone from an average football team to a good football team to a great football team, and we've worked really hard to do those things, but we're not an elite football team yet. And as hard as we have worked to go from average to good, from good to great, the work that it's going to take to get to an elite program is going to be just as hard as the ground and the distance that we've already traveled. It's going to be just as hard to get there.
So I've seen two sides of it, cool or fool. I've seen whether people appreciate this, they don't. I think it's very cool. This is a man taking full responsibility for not being good enough to be the elite team despite their hard work. They've built their way up. They're on the bottom. And he mentioned they went from an average team to a good team to a great team. And he made it crystal clear that they're a great team, but they're not elite yet. They've come up. It's why they've come up short time and time again in big games the last few years. He's sending a message not only to the younger players and guys within his locker room, but to the whole sports world that working hard takes more than just dedication. It takes all the blood, sweat, and tears and years of building, and people that have to buy into the process and learn and grow. You can work to be great, but it won't always play out the way you'd like it to. It's the grind that never stops, even when you're one of the best, and you won't be the best until you beat the best. They're not elite. They have to beat the elite. They have to win games like that, especially when you have a 2-score lead late. So I think this was a very cool message from James Franklin. It's cool or fool of the day. James Franklin gets cool. He's cool over Bill Belichick, who got the fool last week. And rounded out, final dollar take. Been talked about a lot in the last 2 days. So we all saw it. Earl Thomas broke his leg in Arizona on Sunday. Carted off the field, flipped off the Seattle sideline. This was Earl Thomas sending a message to Seattle. It was a message to Pete Carroll and a message to GM John Schneider. I mean, he wanted to get paid and stay in Seattle. He should have gotten paid, probably. He's probably the best safety in the league, has played like it his whole career. Le'Veon Bell gets into it, tweets, saying he'll be the villain for everyone else, he'll be the bad guy for everyone else as long as this continues. Now, I've given a lot of shame to Le'Veon Bell in the past weeks for his actions, the way he's handled it, him holding out, going skiing during Steelers games, tweeting. It's all a bunch of nonsense, but I'm on the side of it when it comes to paying the guys that need to be paid, the guys who elevate your franchise. This is a guy who's part of the Legion of Boom a few years ago. This was an unbelievable Seattle franchise that was on its way up and went to back-to-back Super Bowls. The 12th man was a real thing. That stadium got louder than any other stadium in the league on a big game in prime time. And that suddenly fell apart for Seattle, and all they have left, really, is Russell Wilson. when you have that core of guys and you think about it, you think of the defense and Richard Sherman, Chancellor, Wagner, Earl Thomas, Michael Bennett. I almost said Martellus. Michael Bennett. And then you got Russell Wilson, Marshawn Lynch. Like, those are the guys you think of. All they have left is Russell Wilson. And Earl Thomas was here, and he said, pay me, or I'm not staying. He wants to go. He's not happy there without being paid. He was the last hope, the remnants of the Legion of Boom in Seattle, and they don't pay him. For Thomas, he showed interest in leaving. He decided to stay and wanted to get paid and keep what was left of the Legion of Boom. And instead of Le'Veon Bell and sitting out, holding out, not playing, he goes out and then puts his body on the line. He goes out, plays every play at 100%, and he gets hurt. I respect it more because of that. And the Seahawks missed their opportunity to pay them. But Seattle may walk out of this in a winning situation. They didn't pay him, and now he's hurt and he's injured. But it was also a message from Earl Thomas and a message to the league saying we need to pay these guys. And when he doesn't get paid and he's done, that could affect the rest of his career. That's the same leg he broke last year. If you pay him, it's a waste for Seattle. They may come out winning, but at the end of the day, this is a lose-lose for both sides. Both sides look bad. Seattle didn't pay their man. He gets hurt. He leaves, flipping them off. A lot of animosity, a lot of issues within that locker room now. There's going to be a lot of things moving forward for that Seattle team that I already knew was going into the season, and is why I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. They already got off to the 0-2 start. They're back to 2-2 even, but there's no way they come close to winning the division with the LA Rams. They may have an edge over San Francisco now because Jimmy G is hurt, but I don't think they're competing for that wild card. There's too many good teams in the South. The NFC East is always up for grabs when it comes to the wild card. And the NFC North is going to be tough. Detroit Lions almost just won in Dallas on Sunday. Green Bay is always going to be the front runner. But leading right now is the Chicago Bears, which I don't think anyone expected to be 3-1 right now. Seattle's not making the playoffs. They have a lot of things going downwards. All they have holding them together is Russell Wilson right now. He is their only hope. And Pete Carroll turning around that locker room. So, for Earl Thomas, hopefully a swift and painless recovery. But now you have people turning their head towards you. You just left the field flipping off your own organization. A lot of things that are going to come with that. And that's it. Thank you for listening, watching. Colts Corner here today from Medaille College live on WMCB. The Fuse will be back on Thursday and then again next week. Make sure you listen again. Andrew Parks was in here on a good talk. Got through the dumpster fire, the higher fires of the week. Probably going to expand that a little more next week. Once we get into week 5, start to expand that higher fires, maybe get 10 teams in there. Thank you again for joining. You are watching Colts Corner. Have a good one.
H3 Music.